reading to you the big book of words you should know. Kind of like a dictionary. Probably gonna break this up into a few parts because it has 143 pages. Words you absolutely should know. If you pride yourself as a good communicator, you absolutely must know the words in this section. If items on this list are unfamiliar to you, learn them immediately or risk being at an embarrassing loss for words. The first word is abacus, a device used to figure arithmetic equations by moving beads along rods. Mrs. Danvers thought that the abacus with its brightly colored beads would entertain the first graders while illustrating the basic principles of addition and subtraction. Abdicate, verb, to formally give up a position or responsibility. To abdicate means to step down from a high government office or other powerful position. Originally, the word referred primarily to royalty. The king, as we all know, abdicated rather than gave up the woman he loved. Abet, verb, to encourage or assist a plan or activity. To abet is to entice or help, usually in a misdeed. An accomplice to a robbery abets the crime. Though Michael did not participate in the actual kidnapping, he left himself open to charges of abetting the perpetrators by hiding them from the police. Abbreviated, adjective, shortened. Because the hour is late, I will limit myself to an abbreviated version of my intended speech. Abduct, verb, to take a person away secretly and illegally, often by use of force. To kidnap. My sister Ellen used to take such long showers that Dad would jokingly ask if she'd been abducted by aliens. Abject, adjective, reduced to a low state or condition, also demonstrating hopelessness. I gave up golf when I realized I was an abject failure on the green. Abominate, verb, to loathe or hate, to view with extreme hostility. Miss Green abominated the notion of children working 12-hour days and saw legislation forbidding companies from hiring minor workers. Abrade, verb, to wear away or rub off, to wear down in spirit. To abrade is to erode or break down. Sandpaper abrades the surface of wood. The campaign had hoped for a hard-hitting, informative television commercial, but the ad, widely perceived as negative and mean-spirited, served only to abrade voter support. Absolution, noun, the condition of having been forgiven or freed of guilt. To Myron's dismay, the judge did not consider his having paid for the damage to the other party's car sufficient absolution for the crime of driving while intoxicated. Absolve, verb, to formally pronounce guiltless or blameless. To absolve is to relieve of any responsibility for an actual or alleged misdeed. In the legal sense, absolution carries with it implication that the authorities no longer hold that the individual committed the misdeed. The judge absolved the accused of any wrongdoing. Abstain. Verb. To refrain from, to refuse to partake in, to go without voluntarily. Maria, who had abstained from eating meat while in high school, was persuaded to try a cheeseburger on her graduation night. Abstemious. Adjective. Consuming food and drink in moderation. Those who are abstemious restrict themselves to the bare necessities of life. In a larger sense, the word can refer to any austere or unassuming lifestyle. Despite the hardships of his abstemious ways of life, the monk radiated the confidence that comes with knowing one has chosen the correct path. Abstruse. Adjective. Complex and difficult to comprehend. Abstruse refers to something complex or specialized that requires special effort to grasp. Scientists may understand Einstein's theory of relativity, but for most laymen, it remains an abstruse collection of surrealistic ideas. Abyss. Noun. An endless black void. An emptiness. A huge hole with no bottom. After 9 days of working on my term paper with no conclusion in sight, I felt more and more as if I were facing an abyss. Accentuate. Verb. To intensify or accent. To accentuate something is to emphasize or stress it. To strengthen or heighten the effort of something is to accentuate it. Brian's new glasses accentuate his nose unflatteringly. Accept. Verb. To take into possession. See for comparison. The listening for accept. I'm happy to accept your invitation to dinner, Claude. Accolade. Noun. A mark of acknowledgement or expression of praise. Originally, an accolade was the ceremonial bestowal of knighthood upon a person with a sword taped on each shoulder. That which confers praise or honor is an accolade. The firm's president had hung on his office wall many plaques, citations, and accolades. Accord. Noun. A formal reaching of agreement. An accord is reached when a settlement or compromise of conflicting views occurs. After a prolonged strike, when the issue of health care benefits was resolved, the representatives finally reached an accord acceptable to both labor and management. Accost. Verb. To greet or approach, usually in a confrontational way. To approach in order to confront. I was having a wonderful time at Sarah's wedding until Uncle George accosted me at the bar and demanded to know when I planned to get a real job. Acme. Noun. The highest point, summit. Although his many fans might consider winning the Pulitzer the acme of Marvin's writing career, in his mind, nothing would ever match the thrill of seeing his first novel in print. Acquisitive. Adjective. Someone marked by hunger to attain and possess things. Fred stopped dating Laura after it became clear that she was disturbingly acquisitive. Acrid. Adjective. Biting or harsh in odor or taste. Deeply or violently bitter. Acrid refers to anything unpleasantly sharp and pungent to the senses of smell or taste. Acrid can also be used to describe bitter or harsh verbal exchange between persons. Florence's acrid remarks did not sit well with the board of directors. Acronym. Noun. A word formed by combining the first letters of several other words. Example. NOW is an acronym for the National Organization for Women. Cindy believed that the secret to getting good grades on tests was to use acronyms as memory aids. Adamant, adjective. Unwilling to submit, stubborn and unyielding. Historically, adamant refers to a legendary stone of infinite hardness. The word diamond shares the same root. Despite the objections of their families, Robin and Tim were adamant about moving away from their town in which they had been raised. Adapt, verb, to adjust, to make something or oneself fit into a particular circumstances, to conform. See for comparison the entry for adopt. Jim and Daisy worried that the cross-country move would upset their teenage daughter. But as it turned out, Melanie adapted to their new home more easily than her parents. Addendum, noun, something to be added. An addition. The treaty included an addendum setting out the terms of troop withdrawal. Adept, adjective. Proficient, expert, highly skilled. Adept refers to someone who is very good at performing a given task. Hence, an adept formulator of crossword puzzles sometimes seems to me to have memorized the entire dictionary. Adhere, verb. To hold fast to. Usually with a sense of honor or allegiance. Even after his career in advertising forced him to move to New York City, Mason continued to adhere to the values of his strict Mormon upbringing. Adjunct, noun, an essential addition, an appendage or complement. Fast cars and designer clothes are only adjuncts to a comfortable lifestyle. Lyle argued, well, health insurance is something a family simply can't do without. Adobe, noun, a type of brick made of clay and straw. The clay used to form such bricks. Our anthropology professor informed us that adobe huts are viable only in climates with very little rainfall. Adopt, verb, to accept or take as one's own. See for comparison the entry for adapt. After last year's car trouble, I've adopted the philosophy that a good mechanic is worth every penny you pay him. Adrenaline, noun. A chemical produced in the body that gives one added strength and energy. Having run up and down the basketball court for nearly an hour, Bob hoped for a burst of adrenaline to carry him through the end of the game. Adroit, adjective, clever, expert, skilled with hands or feet. Basil Rathbone was an adroit swordsman. Adulation, noun. Extreme praise, admiration, or flattery, especially of a servile nature. Adulation is generally taken to describe acclaim and admiration that is out of scope with its object. Despite great hardships, upheaval, and death resulting from the violent tactics of the secret police, adulation of Stalin continued as though the country was paradise itself. Adulterate, verb, to make impure or tainted. To adulterate is to reduce the quality of something, for instance, by substituting inferior ingredients. An unadulterated product is one that retains its unoriginal high quality and has not been tampered with in any way. At the turn of the century, the sale of adulterated dairy products in the U.S. caused a major scandal. Adverse, adjective, unfavorable, acting in opposition to. also tending to discourage. See for comparison the entry for averse. Despite adverse circumstances, Jenny and I managed, after a month of looking, to find an apartment we could afford. Advocate, verb. In its noun form, advocate is pronounced differently. Advocate, and means one who supports or defends the cause of another. As a verb, advocate is the act of pleading in favor of another. If you need a recommendation, I'd be happy to advocate for you. Affect, verb. To influence, to stir the emotions of, to produce an effect in something. See for comparison the entry for effect. The memory of my parents' hideous and protracted breakup affected my life profoundly and made me vow to work harder at making my own marriage succeed. Infinity, noun. A natural liking or affection for something or someone. The king had an affinity for those on his council who always said he was right. Affirmation, adjective. Positive in nature. Factually valid. Affirmation is the opposite of negative. Its use means the subject has vouched for and affirmed the correctness of a statement or idea. When asked whether or not he lived at 1267 Main, the defendant answered in the affirmation. Affliction, noun. Suffering a state of pain. An affliction is a state of misery or disabling disease. Carl's arthritis was at times quite painful, but he found the most remarkable ways to work around his affliction. Aid, verb. To help. See for comparison the entry for aid. Please keep our organization efforts to aid these refugees. Aid, noun. An assistant or trusted helper. She served as the senator's most important aide during his term in office. Alacrity, noun. Eager, cheerful, rapidity, or promptness. Someone who is willing to extend themselves politely and quickly for another issue is said to show alacrity. Jane made a special effort to show alacrity for her first day on the job. Alibi, noun. The story or circumstances that proves one is innocent of a crime or misdeed. A credible excuse or explanation of innocence. Mike promised Craig he'd provide him with an alibi for the night of the bank robbery, but when the police questioned the men, they found that the details of their stories didn't match. Verb. To calm or help put aside fear or uneasiness. My report will help allay suspicion that our prophets have been failing. Allege, verb. To accuse someone or something, usually wrongdoing, without proof. Unless you can prove you didn't eat the last cookie, I will have to allege that you're the thief. Allegiance, noun. Loyalty, particularly to a government. Alex had promised his allegiance to the family firm time and time again, but the new offer from their overseas competitor he decided was too good to turn down. Allocate, verb. To distribute something for a specific purpose or to a specific person or group. When Mom allocates tasks, I'm always the one who has to take out the garbage. Allude, verb. To make passing reference to. A person who gives a few details but does not describe an event openly and completely could be said to allude to that event. Similarly, someone who makes a brief reference to an incident in a certain novel is considered to have made an allusion to the work. I'm aware of the incident you are alluding to, Mr. Mayor, but I am afraid you have been misinformed by the events of that night. Alluring, adjective. tempting, possessing the power to entice. Although Kim was following a strict diet, the chocolates were too alluring for her to resist. Ally, noun, a confederate or fellow associate in a cause, also as a verb to join with another in a common pursuit. With Jones as my ally, I knew the project was more likely to be approved. Already, adverb, before or at some previously specified time. My mother was already sitting in her place in church when I walked down the aisle. Altar, noun, a platform in a church or synagogue. See for comparison the entry for altar. Father Miller stood and addressed us from the altar. That's spelled A-L-T-A-R. Alter with an E, A-L-T-E-R, a verb, to cause to change. See for comparison the entry for alter. I could tell that the documents had been altered. They featured 2 different sets of handwriting in 2 shades of ink. Altruism, noun, unselfish devotion to the well-being of others. Mother Teresa's life was marked by altruism toward the poor and suffering of the world. Ambidextrous, adjective, capable of using both hands with equal skill. Ambidextrous is made up of 2 halves from old Latin words, ambi, meaning both, and dexter, meaning right. The idea is that an ambidextrous person is able to act as though he has 2 right hands. Since a juggler was ambidextrous, she could start her routine with a circular motion to either the left or the right. Ambiguous, adjective, unclear in meaning, open to more than one interpretation. See for comparison the entry on ambivalent. The letter from my mother was ambiguous as to the date of the family reunion, so we will have to call her to get the specifics. Ambivalent, adjective, uncertain or undecided. See for comparison the entry on ambiguous. I'm ambivalent as to whether we should invite Ralph to the party. He is a great storyteller, but he sometimes drinks too much. Amend, verb, to modify or update. See for comparison the entry on amend. In light of the testimony we've heard tonight, Madam President, I'd like to amend my earlier remarks. Amenity, noun, a pleasant manner or custom. Also a component or feature that gives pleasure or satisfaction. While the primary meaning of amenity has to do with the customs of social interaction, its use in advertising and sales settings to mean a concomitant and desirable extra has gained ground in recent years. Chris's home, which was once spare, now featured all the amenities: a sauna, a plasma TV, and even a new swimming pool in the back. Amiable, adjective, possessing a pleasant, cordial nature. A person who has a happy disposition and easy to get along with is said to be amiable. Jenny made it a point to speak to everyone at the party. She came across as quite an amiable hostess. Amicable, adjective, generally amicable means characterized by goodwill or peace, but the term is typically used to describe things most people don't consider particularly amicable. The Hudson's divorce is so amicable that they often go out to dinner together. Noun, freedom from imprisonment for large numbers of people, initiated by a government. The prisoners of war waited years for amnesty. Amorous, adjective, strongly disposed towards love or sexuality. Someone who is amorous is preoccupied with thoughts of love, especially sexual love. The young man's amorous attentions merely annoyed Rose. Androgynous, adjective, either specifically male nor female, appearing with both male and female characteristics. Amy said her new short haircut was a breeze to maintain compared to the long mane she used to have, but I thought it made her look rather androgynous. Anecdote, noun, a short, interesting story, often amusing and biographical. The speaker filled his talk with funny anecdotes of his time in the U.S. Navy. Animosity, Noun. Intense hostility toward a person or thing, usually taking the form of action. Animosity is a bitter dislike directed at something or someone. Clyde's first few months on the job were fine, but after he was transferred to a new department, he came to the harbor rail animosity towards his supervisor. Anomaly. Noun. A seemingly abnormal example, a deviation from established form. When something differs markedly from the expected order of things, it is an anomaly. Anomaly. Bill, who was raised in a family of avid golfers, is something of an anomaly. He thinks the sport is boring. Antagonist. Noun. The bad guy in a story, novel, film, etc. The character who opposes the story's main character. As an antagonist, you can't get any better than John Milton's version of Satan in Paradise Lost. Antecedent. A trend, idea, fashion, historical event, etc. that came before. Also an earlier word to which a pronoun refers. In the sentence, the car was painted blue, though it had a huge red rust mark. Car is the antecedent of it. Remember, writers, the antecedent always goes first in the sentence. Anticlimate. Adjective. A disappointing decline in contrast to a previous rise, an average ending to a series of important events. Mike got down on his knees and produced a small velvet box, only to reveal a tiny pewter thimble bearing a replica of the Golden Gate Bridge, which Elizabeth found anticlimactic, to say the least. Alright, guys, so that's all I'm going to read today. I have to go pick up my son from daycare. Hopefully the next time I read this book to you all, I'll be able to do it for a little bit longer.